Hello there, welcome to another Alps webinar. This webinar is going to focus on target setting, as you can see, and we're going to talk through how to set aspirational targets. It follows on from the methodology webinar, and so I'm making an assumption that you've watched that webinar and your methodology is okay. If not, then please do watch that Alps webinar on methodology, or have a look at the other resources on methodology. Because in this webinar, I'm going to look at how we use the minimum expected grades, a reminder of what they are, how we use them in terms of our target setting, and I'm going to sort of assume that you're okay with that understanding of where those come from. Because we're going to spend quite a bit of time looking at personalised targets or subject-specific targets and how we support subject staff in setting those up. Just a quick overview of other information available via your digital guide. There's a quick guide. I'm going to refer to that a fair bit actually, so it's got a lot of links on it which are going to be helpful. So have that to hand. And also the PowerPoint resource, I built that so that you can take your staff through this yourself. So please feel free to use it, edit it, and let me know how you find it. There's a briefing paper which just gives a sort of general rounded overview of this topic. Okay, so let's have a look at the MEGs. Now, reminder, we're talking about progress from a start point to an end point, and at Key Stage 5 or AA level, AS, A level and BTEC, that's about what did they get at GCSE and what have they come out with, so that's UCAS points. And we're looking at the journey that they've gone along that path. So again, another reminder, the minimum expected grades are the grades, or more importantly, the points that were achieved by the providers at the 75th percentile from the national dataset. So if you look at that top band of 7.5 plus, those high attaining young people at GCSE in the school that achieved the top 25% mark from the national database got the equivalent of A star A. So in the Alps philosophy, that's what we're interested in as an aspiration. So down the 11 prior attainment bands there, those are the MEGs. Those are the grades that were achieved by the provider at the 75th percentile in each of those bands. So that's our start point, and it is just a start point. Just that next bit, there's a reminder that if you got that grade with every student across your different prior attainment bands and across their entries, then you would be a top 25% provider and therefore red hot. Okay, so those are the A-level MEGs. If you want to see all of the MEGs for all of the courses, have a look at the guide there, which is available from your homepage in the resources section. Okay, so how do I get my MEGs? So this is really for your data manager or your data staff. And it's all done in Connect Data. So on the quick guide, I have put links to how they can create cohorts, put your prior attainment in, and add the subjects and the teaching data that students are taking. I'm presuming that if you're new to Alps, you would be wanting to do that with Year 12, possibly and Year 13. So the quick guide has links to the knowledge base to show people how to do that. Once that's all in, you've got your MEGs. They are generated automatically, and you will find them on your homepage in that report section, MEG reports, and you've got some Excel file and PDFs that you can choose from to export them. So that's your MEGs, but as I say, that is a start point. So we're going to jump into the subject level now. And it's really imperative that all of your teaching staff understand how the MEG relates to national progress in their subject, because it's different. which I'm sure you're not going to be surprised to hear. It's different across different subjects. So what I'm going to take you through now is how you might guide your subject staff into setting aspirational targets. Okay? So, what we really need to ask first of all is how our MEGs relate to our Alps grades. So, if everyone in my teaching set, so for example, if I'm a biology teacher, so if everyone in my biology set got their MEG, then as a biology teacher, I would get an Alps score of 1.00. Now that's according to that formula. As I say, all this is in the guide. So trust me, that is what the equation revolves around, 1.00. So if everyone gets their Alps score, I've got a score of 1.00. And then what our data team do is they then look at constructing a unique thermometer for every subject. So they look at the scores achieved by each of the departments in the national data set for each subject and then rank them on a thermometer. Okay, so I'm going to show you a few thermometers. Okay, so there's the first one, is media studies. So the top media studies department in the country got 1.29 and the lowest got 0.79. Now what does that mean? Well, that little bit there that says 0.2 is equivalent to a grade per student means that 1.29 is 0.3 above that 1.00. 0.3 above. So that's a grade and a half above the MEG per student that each of the students in that particular media studies department got. On the converse side, that 0.79 is approximately 0.2 below the 1. So therefore, every single one of those students on average dropped a grade. So I hope that makes sense, because that's quite key. So that 0.2. Now if we look at another thermometer, here's the biology one. I've deliberately chosen a second thermometer that's very different from the media studies one. In this case, the biology department at the top got 1.06. That's not far off the MEG. So the top biology department in the country is getting pretty much the MEG, whereas the top media studies department is getting a grade and a half over it. Now, does that mean that media studies is easier than biology? There are many reasons why that is the case. So it's not about subject difficulty. It could be that the quality of biology teaching is very poor, so students don't make the same progress. I can say that because I'm a biology teacher. But you've got to understand the context then to be able to understand how to target set. A third example would be English literature, where if you get the MEG, you pretty much bang on that grade 4, top 40%. So what we've got to understand then is where that 1 plots on our thermometer. So as I say, if you get a 1 in media studies, that puts you almost in the bottom 25% of media studies departments. So you would want your media studies teachers to be more aspirational than the MEG. If you're English teacher, then the MEG puts you, the 1.00 puts you at a grade 4. So you're going to target set around that MEG, because you are potentially aiming to get most students the MEG and then maybe some above the MEG to get to that red 3. Biology, very different. You're looking at a grade 2. That's top 10% of biology departments are getting the MEG. So therefore, as a biology teacher, you can afford for some of your students to drop. I'm being very generic here, but some of your students could drop from their MEG and you'd still be a red biology teacher. Now, obviously, it doesn't have any, that doesn't have the impact that you want with the students, but just to understand that concept as a teacher is step 1. Okay? Right then, so basically, I'm going to show you what that looks like sort of across the subjects. So you've got at A level then a score of 1 coming out at very, very different points on the thermometer. Just in case you're doing some BTECs, the same principles apply, and you've got some differentiation in terms of where a 1 gets you. Okay? So what does that mean? It means that you need to be aspirational with your target setting at a subject level. And you need to understand that MEG and where it pops you, that 1.00, in order to be aspirational as a department for where you want to come out on your individual unique thermometer. So a biology department might be nearer to the MEG with the personalised targets, whereas a media studies department, you'd really want them to be pushing the MEG up by 1 at least. Now, clearly there are other factors that you would take into account. I'm thinking here about art and music and the creative subjects. So this is just me being very generic and providing you with a sort of overview, a guide to this. You will find all of the subject thermometers. They're all on Connect if you've got the subject. But in the Alps guide, all of the thermometers are there. They're on their side. But you can see the difference in progress across the different thermometers on those subject thermometer pages. So what does that mean for you at the beginning of term? So you've generated your MEGs and you're then leading staff via an inset. Make sure that you've looked at that PowerPoint, because hopefully it's got the wherewithal to stop you having to reinvent the wheel. So do use that. It's got on it a bit of Alps methodology and the principles of the MEGs. Then it describes the unique subject thermometers, and then it encourages staff to set personalised targets. You can put those personalised targets into Connect data, and again you can export them in the MEG report section, and you will also be able to see them in Connect Interactive on the subject pages, so that you can have conversations around them. Okay, so where does that leave us then in terms of, Connect data? That's just an overview of what you can do there. Now, the top performing schools would be very clear in allowing staff and students to understand that principle. So it's really important for students to be part of that process, because it's a two-way dialogue, isn't it? And a student should be involved in the setting of their own personalised target. They will have their own university aspirations after all, and would want to be part of that target setting process. So really it's a plea to make sure that you build that time into quality assurance cycles, so that you can have those dialogues going between teaching staff and students, and potentially review them at various points in the year as well, so that you can check whether they're on track and whether those personalised targets need to be revised. The last bullet point there is just an example of some schools who re-emphasise the fact that this is a minimum expected grade by looking at students in the past from similar prior attainment bands and doing similar subjects who've smashed their MEGs. So it is just that starting point. The knowledge base contains some staff checklists, and there are links in the digital guide, but there is a target settings section on that, and hopefully will support you in getting everyone talking the same language about target setting. And there's some a refreshment of just the resources that are available, and they're all on your digital guide, and all the links are on there as well. Okay, I hope that's been helpful today, and thank you for listening.